in Ukraine is stable. However, it is expected that over time, the speed and quality of the network will for maintaining internet access for enterprises and government agencies. Earlier, Elon Musk published a post in support of Ukraine, as well as Russians. Rallies are being held in major cities of Russia with the aim of ending hostilities in Ukraine. The billionaire also called for emergency measures to confront Russia. Entrepreneur Elon on the social network Twitter. It's hard to talk about it, but we need to immediately increase oil and gas production. Extraordinary times require extraordinary measures. That's what Elon said. With this statement, the CEO of Tesla actually admitted that at present, energy industry is not yet able to respond promptly to the situation when, due to the events in Ukraine, prices for oil, gas, and their refined products, primarily gasoline, are rapidly rising. Sanctions against Russia have also hit the economies of other major countries hard. Sustainable energy solutions simply cannot immediately compensate for Russian oil and gas exports. Added the entrepreneur. Although Musk himself understands that such a statement about an increase in hydrocarbon production will negatively affect sales of his Tesla electric vehicles. The Global Anti-Russian Coalition at the UN, created and sponsored by the United States, has faced serious problems. This was stated by Ted Carpenter, an expert on international issues, in an article for the National Interest magazine. In his opinion, this is evidenced by the vote of the United Nations General Assembly, UN, on a resolution demanding that Russia stop the special operation in Ukraine. On March 2, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution demanding that the operation in Ukraine. The resolution calls on Moscow to stop the use of force in Ukraine and withdraw troops from the country. The sanctions imposed against Russia hit her hard. Russia, USA, the situation is escalating. But recently, the conflict between the two largest countries of Russia and America escalated even more after the demands of the president of Ukraine Zelensky to close the sky over Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin said that the creation of a NATO no-fly zone over Ukraine will be considered by Moscow as participation in an armed conflict. President of the Russian Federation. Now we hear that it is necessary to make a no-fly zone over the territory of Ukraine. It is impossible to do this from the very territory of Ukraine. It is possible only from the territory of some neighboring states. But any movement in this direction will be considered by us as participation in the armed conflict of the country from whose territory threats to our servicemen will be created. At the same moment, we will consider them as participants in a military conflict. And it doesn't matter what kind of members they are. Members of which organizations. I hope there is an understanding of this, and it will not come to this. The United States does not support the idea of creating a no-fly zone over Ukraine. The White House said that its provision would require the presence of the U.S. armed forces, which would mean a potentially direct conflict and a potential war with Russia. A petition to NATO on the introduction of a no-fly zone over Ukraine has gained the 1 million votes necessary for consideration. The alliance was simply obliged to consider the appeal, but quickly denied Ukraine this. This Friday, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg warned that if a no-fly zone is introduced, it will already be possible to talk about a full-scale war in Europe. What does the term no-fly zone mean in an armed conflict? No-fly zones are usually created over the territory of a state during a military conflict. In fact, this is a strict ban on the actions of military aviation. When the sky is completely closed, aircraft that flies into this sector is immediately shot down. Such restrictions can be imposed on important objects even in times of peace. Over government buildings, over stadiums during mass events or squares with a large crowd of people, and in this case all military aircraft that fly into a closed zone are also destroyed. Also, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken ruled out the introduction of a no-fly zone. After all, he is convinced that Ukraine can cope on its own. On February 27, the Russian president ordered the transfer of deterrence forces to a special combat duty mode for all actions of America and NATO countries. And if an unmanned zone is introduced and Russian planes are shot down by other countries,